Back to when you turned 15 and you studied for your driving test so you could learn to drive. Everything in the book was Greek. You didn't really understand it. But when you were able to get under the wheel and started driving for yourself, you understood things a lot better because you could kind of put it together, seeing what you had read and doing what you had read. And music is about the same way. It's not near as hard when you do it as it is before you learn how to do it. And I'm racing through this because for the most part, you don't have to know all of this that I'm telling you to sing occupational, or rather acapella singing. But I want everybody to be a little bit familiar with music in general so that you can pick up a book and see a song that maybe you've never sung before, or you may be a little bit unfamiliar with. And because you do understand a little bit about music, you may be able to find your way working through that song in a little better way. Now, and I do have a section in this study on sight reading, and that's what that is. When you pick up a song that you've never sang or heard before. And I've done that quite often in here because I don't know all the songs in this book. I used to be pretty good at it because I did it every day. What you don't use, you lose. And I don't sight read every day anymore, so I can't do it as well as I used to. But it is something that you can retain it, and it is not near as hard as I guess it looked like last week. So what I want to do, just for the first part of our class, I want us to go back and just kind of reiterate some of the things that I threw out at you for the very first time last week. We're back on lesson 1. By the way, I don't know if I told y'all this last week or not, but your books, the images that you have in the book are identical to what will be on the screen. And I did that on purpose, just in the event that some of you can't see the monitors because I can only blow up notes so big. And you can have it in front of your face in the book if you can't read or see the monitor. So anyway, let's just begin by what we talked about last week. And this is the first and main thing that we have to know about. And if you look inside your books, you're going to see every song written, all the notes, all the shapes are on what you see on the monitor there. It's called the grand staff. It consists of 2 sets of lines and spaces. The top set is the treble clef step. It is for the sopranos and the altos, mainly for our ladies. The bottom clef is the bass clef. It is mainly for the men, which is our tenor and our bass. They will interchange. If you'll notice, there is a space in between those 2 staffs that will basically hold 3 notes. There is a note that will sit on top of the top line of the bass clef, the bottom clef, and there is a note that will hang from the bottom line of the treble clef. And then there is a note that is written in the middle, and that middle, you've heard on the piano, the middle C, that's it. In between the 2 clefs, that note, there's a note that would be written in the very middle that is known as middle C. That is the division line between the bass clef and the treble clef. Everything above that middle C is going to be treble clef. Everything below that middle C is going to be in bass clef. And again, we talked about last week that the lines and spaces are different. Now, I'll talk about that. The lines and spaces, they have different names. When you look at the treble clef, which is the top clef, the one that looks like a funny S, the lines are E, G, B, D, F. And they're always going to be E, G, B, D, F, no matter what you do, if it is a G clef, treble clef. Now, I told y'all this last week, there are many other clefs than treble clef and bass clef, but you're not going to find them in the book, okay? So these are the 2 that we're going to deal with. Learn how to spell the word face, then you know the spaces in the treble clef, F-A-C-E, and they will always be F-A-C-E. Learn the little poem, every good boy does fine, E-G-B-D-F, and those lines will always be And if you look below that D, underneath that bottom E on the line, you'll see where I was talking about middle C. It's always going to be there. And that is the dividing line between treble clef and bass clef. So, if you're going to lead sing, if you're going to pitch a song, if you're going to read music, this you have to know. You have to know the lines and spaces. If you don't, you're never going to read music, okay? And you probably won't even be able to follow along. Some people tell me, well, I watch the notes, and if they go up and down, I go up and down. Yeah, but you don't know how far to go up and down by just doing this bit, unless you're hearing someone else sing beside you. Which is why I've asked everyone to sit together when we do begin our singing, because I want everybody to sing and be sitting next to the person who sings the same part that you do. It will make it a lot easier for you to sing your part. And we're going to get into part finding later on. You probably may not even be singing the part you think you need to be singing. And we'll figure all that out as we go through the program. Then we have, of course, bass clef. And again, the lines and spaces in bass clef are totally different than the lines and spaces on the treble clef. If you are a piano player, you already know that. The left hand is tuned to this clef, the right hand is tuned to the treble clef, and they work together even though the lines and spaces are different. For those of us who were in the band and didn't really do piano work, you're probably either going to be acquainted with either the treble clef or the bass clef, and probably not both. So it may be a little more difficult for you to read the clef that your instrument was not in when you were in the band. And that'll take a little learning as we go on. But again, you've got to know the lines and spaces if you're going to do any reading whatsoever in music. All right, we was talking about what the grand staff does. The grand staff also gives us what key we're going to sing our song in. Some of the song leaders use pitch maps or the app that is on their phone, and we're going to teach everyone how to do this. By the way, those of you who do not lead singing, you will learn how to pitch a song just like those who do lead singing. Because everything that we do in here, everybody's going to do, not just the song leaders. And so, the grand staff up in the upper corner, when you see the little tic-tac-toe marks as you see there, or it may be the little flat sign that you see there, the amount of those symbols that you see in the upper left-hand corner will tell you what key that you need to be pitching your song in or singing your song in. There are other ways to do that, and I'm going to show you a tremendously, stupidly simple way to do that when we get into shape notes. And it's a lot easier, I guess it's even a little easier than just learning what's what, I don't know. But once you know it, you know it, and you won't forget it. So this is the flat sign, and what the other one is called the sharp sign. The sharp sign raises the pitch a little bit, and the flat sign lowers the pitch. A half tone, a half note, and you don't understand that yet, that's coming later on as well. It's impossible to throw everything out at you at once. So pick up on what you pick up on, and then the rest of it will actually come close to you. This little symbol is neither a sharp or a flat. It is called a natural tone, and what it does, it cancels a key that has a sharp on that particular line of space, or that has a flat on a particular line of space, and it raises it back to its natural point. And it's also called an accidental, which means it's written into the music, but it's not part of the key signature. And again, this is something you really don't have to know to sing a cappella singing in songbooks here at church. But it's a good thing to know if you're going to learn to read music. Well, in fact, it's a necessary thing to know if you're going to learn to read music. And then here is a list of all of the key signatures in music, period. I know you can't read that on the monitor, because that was as big as I could blow it up and get the whole picture in. But it is in your book. This picture is in your book. And if you want to go through the process of learning each one, how many sharps equal a key, like some of us have done over the years, it's a great way to learn, and you never forget that, and you know it. And so I really suggest that as we learn this stuff, I'll show you tricks and to how to do it simply, to learn it simply. But when you learn it, throw the tricks away and just know it. That's the best way to do it. The grand step also tells you time signature, and we haven't even got into that at all, and we're not going to get into that for a little while. But basically all that is the two numbers, the 4 and the 4. The top number tells you how many beats there are in the measure. The measure is the space between the two long bar lines that you will find throughout every song. About every, probably half an inch, you'll find bars everywhere. And this is the amount of notes in between each one of those bars, and it's called a measure. The bottom number tells you what note gets one beat. This is a 4/4, and which means the quarter note, and you're looking at a quarter note on the monitor. It gets one beat. Now, Jack ain't here tonight. He thought he really messed me up last week. He says, I found a measure that's got 5 beats in it. Well, probably so. He probably found 3/4 notes and 2 8 notes is what he found, or maybe a combination that give him, but it was still 4 beats in that measure, regardless of what he found. There are a lot more music than quarter notes. There's 8th notes, 16th notes, 32nd notes, and if you want to play professionally, you may even find notes in the 64 and 128. That comes on the piano. You can't lift that very much, very easy. So, and of course, then you have half notes, which is smaller, or has more time, and then the whole note. And then there's the dotted notes. We'll get into all that as we move along. There's so many variations to this that you can get to. This is where we had gotten to last week. Simple, there's time signatures. Remember, in the upper corner, you'll see 2 numbers in the upper corner. One's going to tell you how many notes is in each measure, and then the bottom note's going to tell you what note gets the quarter, or gets the 1 beat. If you will look at this particular screen, you will see a 2-beat pattern, a 3-beat pattern, and a 4-beat pattern. The 2-beat pattern, all that means is there are 2 beats in between that measure of time, okay? If they're quarter notes, there are going to be 2 notes. An 8th note is 1/2 of the amount of a quarter note. If you take notes, you're going to have 4 notes. If it's a half note, you're going to have 1 note. If it's a whole note, it's not going to be there, because a half note or 2 beats is all you can put in a 2-beat measure. So, everything here, I think, on the first line, the 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, they're all using quarter notes, which means if you were going to beat time, you could go 1, 2, 1, 2, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. If you went to the 3-beat pattern, it would simply be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and there's never more in a 3/4 time. 4/4, which is what you will find more of in the book than anything, will have 4 beats on it, and we'll get into how to beat the time later on, but it's a 4-beat pattern that you move your hands back and forward, up and down, and to give you that 4-beat pattern. The middle section is a 2/2, 3/2, and 4/2. Now, if you look at those notes, you'll notice they look a little different. What's different about it? They're not blacked in. They're hollow, aren't they? It is known as a half note. Now, the quarter note, you just got to know this in simple music, simple time signatures is 1 beat. Okay, quarter note is 1 beat. The half note is 2 beats. Okay, you will have 2. The half note will actually, even though it's a half note, it's only going to get 1 beat into 2 time. So the half note literally becomes a quarter note into 2 time. Now that can be confusing for you, I understand that. But it's the same as the 2/4s. 1, 2, 1. And there are a couple songs in our books that the half note will get 1 beat instead of a quarter note getting 1 beat. 3/2 time, same principle. There's 3 beats in the measure. The half note gets 1/3 of those 3 beats. The bottom line is, if you'll notice, the bottom number is an 8. Now, the 8 is represented by an 8 note. What's different about that note from the other two? It has a flag on it. It is a solid, it is a pinned in note, it's a solid color, and it has a flag on it. Now, in the time that we've been talking about, which is mainly 4/4, the 8th note would get a half of a beat. It would take 2 of them to equal the amount of a quarter note. It would take 4 of them to equal the amount of a half note. But when that bottom number is an 8, it's going to get 1 count as well. Just like in 2/2 time, the half note gets 1 count, and in 2/4 time, the quarter note gets 1 count. So this is known as simple time signatures. And now, where one note gets 1 beat, whether it's a quarter or a half or an 8, and it can be others. There's a song or two in our book where the bottom number is a 16. I think there's one in there that's that way. I'd have to find it, but I think there's one. All right, the other type of time signature is compound time signature. What that means is that this same note will now get more than 1 beat. For example, in 6/8 time, if you'll notice there, in 6/8 time, what that quarter note has something a little different about it. What is that? It has a dot by it. Okay? Now, let me tell you what a dot does with notes. It takes half of the value of the note and adds it to it. So now we're getting into fractions. Anybody here like fractions? I didn't either. The quarter note gets how many beats? Somebody say 1. Okay. If you had a quarter note and it had a dot after it, what is half the amount of 1? 1/2. Okay. Now, in 4/4 time, which is the one we started out with, that would be true. Butch is giving me a funny look. He's waiting for me to get to this point. But in 6/8 time, which is mentioned right there, in 6/8, the 8th note gets 1 beat. Now, if you had a quarter note that gets 1 beat, and you add half to it, which would give it a beat and a half, that would be the same as 3 8 notes. So, when you see that dotted quarter note, it's going to get 3 counts instead of 1. So it's going to be 1, even though, as let's say you had 6 notes between the measures, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? If you'll notice, in the 2-beat pattern, same thing is true with 6/4. The half note now becomes dotted, but it's still going to get 3. In the bottom section, you'll notice it has a 16 by it. Now the 8th note is dotted, which you give, what is half of an 8th note of that? If you took an 8 and divided it by 2, what would you get? 4. If you added 4 to that 8, what would you get? Okay. What? Did somebody say 16?
Yes.
You're going to have
17.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It just gets deeper and deeper. Thankfully, there are no 16 time signatures in our book. We don't have to worry about it. Okay? In compound time, it's going to be either a 6-beat pattern, a 9-beat pattern, or a 12-beat pattern. Okay? And we're not going to worry about the 12-beat pattern because it's not going to happen. All right? But these are all the different time signatures that you will use. Now, it's not all the time signatures of music. In fact, we do have a song in our book that will go from 4/4 to 5/4, which means there's going to be 5 beats in that measure. But even quarter note still will get 1 beat. And again, we won't even worry about him right now. But I wanted to let you to see the differences. And by the way, Sunday morning, When Claude is leading singing Sunday morning, he has picked a couple of songs that has a couple of these compound signature songs in it. Come up to me and tell me which ones they are, if you recognize them, Sunday morning. That he's got two of them in the songs that he will be singing Sunday. That would be compound time. All right. Let's move on to lesson 2. In lesson 2, you've heard me talk about the quarter note. And you've heard me talk about the eighth note, the half note, and the dots and all that. Well, this is going to explain a lot of things. Okay? First of all, let's look at the parts of the note. Every note has different parts to it. You will have a stem, you will have a head, and then in some of the notes you will have a flag. Some notes will have 2 flags, some will have 3. Doubt that you'll see any with more than that. The head of the note, which is at the bottom there, it will either be filled or it will be hollow. And this is always, of course, this is not shaped notes. When you get into shaped notes, same principle, they will either be filled or hollow, but they will be of a different shape. If we were studying shaped notes, can anybody tell me what this round note here would actually be? Does anybody know? It's in the back of the book, by the way. It's already in your book. If we were studying shaped notes, this note would be the solar note. Okay? We'll get into that later on. The stem, it can go up or it can go down. If you look in your book, you will notice that some of the stems, as you see the head at the top, the stem goes down. In other parts of the song, the stem goes up from the head of the note. It can be either way. It doesn't mean any difference whatsoever. The notes are the same. It just depends on where they are on the staff. The flag, and of course, as we're looking at this particular note, this is what an eighth note looks like with 1 flag. Sometimes it would have 2 flags. Can anybody tell me what 2 flags mean?
16.
Pardon?
16.
16. Very good. What about 3 flags? 37. You're not going to see any of those in this book either. Okay? 16th is as far as you're going to go. All right.
There.
Yes, sir.
This might make it a little bit simpler, you know, if you ever used a ruler on some people, I know everybody has. It's just like it's 4/4 time, it'll be just like a ruler. You got 4 1/4, you know, a quarter of an inch is a quarter. You got 4 of them in there, and then when you little lines, it's 16 and 36.
Just like a ruler, yes. Very good application. So if you know your ruler, it'd make it a lot easier to know the value of notes. All right, musical values. First of all, we have the whole note. Now, the whole note is not going to be used in every song, okay? Depending on the time signature. The whole note is a note that is hollow. It does not have a stem, okay? Its length is equal to 4 beats in 4/4 time, which is, I want us to keep using 4/4 time, and I like Butch's analogy of that. If you took an inch on a ruler, it would be a whole note would be like a full inch. Half note would be like a half an inch, quarter note would be like a quarter of an inch, and the eighth note would be like an eighth of an inch. So if you can use that analogy, it might make it a little easier to understand. But a whole note would be like a full inch on a ruler. In 4/4 time, it's going to get 4 beats. You'll see them all over the place in our book. Okay? And like I said, we're going to keep looking at this at 4/4 time. By the way, look at it on the staff, on the monitor there, and tell me What note would that whole note be in music? F, correct. Very good. How'd you know that?
F-A-C-E.
You what?
Band,
Band, okay. So you didn't have to spell face then, did you?
no,
Okay, all right,
it's automatic.
all right. Next, the half note. The half note is a hollow note, like the whole note. It has a stem. Again, we're getting into fraction. It has half of the value of a whole note. So if you had a whole and you took half of it away, what would you have? Half. Right, very good. A half note, now if a whole note gets 4 beats, what's the half note actually gonna get? Somebody say 2. 2, very good. Okay. Now, this is true in 4/4 time and in 3/4 time. Okay? You will never see a whole note in 3/4 time. Now, will you ever see notes in a song that will equal 4 measures in 3/4 time? Yes, you will. It's called a tie, when you tie 2 notes together, and that comes later too. But in 3/4 time and 4/4 time, you will see half notes because they get less value than the whole note. What if I put a dot on that half note? What did the dot do? It increases it by half its value. So if you put a dot on this note, how many counts would it get? What's 2 plus 1? 3. So if you saw a half note with a dot on it, a dotted half note, it's going to get 3 counts, so you could see it in 3/4 time, okay, as well. But you'll never see a whole note in 3/4 time, okay? Now we get to the quarter note, this is the one we've really been talking about. A quarter note receives 1/4 of the duration of a 4-beat measure, and 1/4 of a whole note. A whole note is equal to how many counts in 4/4 times? How many quarter notes would it take to do the same thing? 4, right. Very good. All right. Notice there's no flag on the quarter note, okay? No flag. Then we have the 8th note. And yes, there are a lot of 8th notes in our book. The 8th note looks like the quarter note, except it has a stem. If a quarter note gets 1 count, how much does an 8th note get? Eighth note is half of what a quarter note is. So it's only going to get 1/2 of the count. How many of those would it take to fill up a measure to be equal to the whole note? 8. It would take 8. Okay. Now this one, you will see quite a few 16th notes. You'll probably see them more in songs that are flowing smoothly and the sound is going up and down. You'll more in our application here, you'll probably see that more so than, if you were looking at music, if you were playing an instrument, it would sound like a da 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 da. That's what it would sound like. But now you're not going to do that singing, right? And we're not going to sing words that fast, but it's very common to play that fast with music. That's why I say 16th notes are probably going to be found, if they're arranged like what's on the screen, it's going to be in a slow flowing song. You will see a lot of dotted 8th and 16th notes, which sounds like da 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 da. You hear that a lot in our song books, and we'll do some songs that have that in it. It would take 16 of these to equal the same thing as a whole note. Okay? How many would it take for a half note? 8. Very good. Like I said, if you can count to 16 and you know your ABCs to the G, you can do this. Not that bad. All right. Now, so here's the pyramid. In 4/4 time, and we're going to, if I'll tell you different if we're going to do anything other than 4/4 time. In 4/4 time, the whole note, standing alone, will get how many counts? 4. To equal that, with half notes, you gotta have how many of them? 2. Because each one of them gets 2 counts. To equal that with quarter notes, how many of them would you have to have?
4.
Because each one of them gets how many counts? 1. Eighth notes, which is half of what a quarter note is. So 1 quarter note is equal to 2 eighth notes. How many eighth notes would it take to equal that whole note? Try again. 8. Because each eighth note is 1/2 of a count. So it takes 2 of them to give you 1 count. So we have the first 2 give you 1 count, the second 2 give you 1 count, the third 2 give you 1 count, the fourth 2 give you 1 count. There's your 4 beats right there. 16th notes. How many of those does it take to equal that whole note? 16. Again, go to the ruler. I love that analogy, which thank you for bringing that to my attention. It's the same as, go to the ruler. All right. Now, you've heard me talk about the dot. The dot will add to any note half of its value. So if you had a half note which is equal to 2 beats, and you saw a dot by it, it's going to take half the value of that note and add it to it. Basically, you're saying 2 plus 1 equal 3, okay? So a quarter note with a dot means you're going to add an eighth note value to the quarter note, which gives it a note and a count and a half. And again, that's something you got to really think about in your head. But you sing it every time. We sing every Sunday morning. I guarantee you sing that measure that way. In some songs, do have that. It makes the note last longer by adding half of its value. So here's the chart on that. I don't know if you can see that on the monitor or not. It is in your book. If you dotted a whole note, can that be done? Yes, it can. If you dotted a whole note, what does the dot do to the whole note? The whole note's worth 4 counts. What does it give you? It gives you 2 more, doesn't it? What kind of time? It couldn't be 4/4 now. We're talking about something different. If you turn that dotted whole note, now it's going to get 6 beats. So what time signature could be a dotted whole note?
6/4.
Pardon?
6/4.
6/4 would do it. 6/8 would do it. Okay. The half note, if you dot it, it's going to give it 3 beats instead of 2. The quarter note, if you dot it, it's going to give it a beat and a half. And then, of course, the 8th note, if you dot it, it's going to give you 3/4 of a beat. And that's that's usually going to be tied to something else. You're not going to find a string of those by themselves in a song, because you wouldn't be able to say the words that fast. Now, the next thing is rest. Look at that, let's see. I thought I put that up there. That's it's not up there, okay. Look in your book, under musical note values, and you'll see musical note values, the rest. I don't have that picture on the screen. The little funny symbol that you see there on the page, you ever seen that before in a song? Know what that is? Okay, that is a quarter reach. Anytime you see that in a song, that means that you do not sing. Yes, sir? Oh, I thought you, okay. There are rests to equal every note in music. For example, the whole rest, and you may not be able to see it on the monitor, if you'll notice, it is a solid rectangle, okay? And if you notice, it is hanging from a line. Okay? Whole rest, which is equal to the same amount of time as a whole note, hangs from a line. Generally, it is the third line. Okay? The half rest looks just like the whole rest, but it doesn't hang from a line. It sits on top of a line. And again, generally, it is the third line. But the half rest is equal to the half note. It gets 2 beats. Now, the quarter rest looks like the little funny bird wing thing. It is 1 beat equal to the quarter note. The eighth rest is like a little dot with a slash. Okay? If you have 1 dot with a slash, it is equal to 1/8 note, which is the note with 1 stem. If you have a 16th rest, you will see 2 little dots and then the slash. And it is equal to a note with 2 stems in fact. So they are the same. All right. And I think that's it for this one. Is it time for the bell? Okay. I asked y'all last week, going back to our time signatures, to find me a couple of songs that had some of the time signatures that you recognize. Did anybody do that? Look in your book right now and find me very quickly a 4/4 song.
5:15.
Call the number out when you get there.
5:15.
5:15. It's got to be a song that we know. 282. Okay. and 282. Okay. Look at 5:15 on Zion's glorious Sunday school. All right. Looking at this song, let's look in the upper left-hand corner. Well, you picked a tough one for the time signature, or rather the key signature. Look in the upper left-hand corner. You see the treble clef? See the bass clef? Okay. How many little beads do you see there?
4.
How many? 4?
4.
Can anybody other than Butch tell me the time signature of this song? He already knows the signature.
Key.
I'm sorry, key signature.
A
What is the key signature of this song?
flat.
If you were going to blow your pitch pipe to start this song in the correct position, what would it be?
A flat.
A flat.
A flat. How'd you know that?
Go to the chart.
Because I saw the triangle on the A flat.
Okay, he's using a trick that I haven't told y'all about yet. All right. This song is in A flat. Now,
Is that true?
the best way to know that is simply know that an A flat is 4
That's your
flats.
do note. That's what you blow.
Learn that and you'll never have trouble remembering it. Because I'm gonna tell you, every song book is not in shape though. Phillips used a trick finding the do symbol, which is a triangle. Triangles are always, the do symbol on the song book is always key.
So where is that exactly?
Over Zion's.
On the second floor?
Yeah, and it's on the A line and it has the flat.
It's on the A space.
Or A space, excuse me. Yeah.
5:15.
So the A line, bass clef.
Something important here, it does not start on the top.
Yeah, right.
Right, it doesn't start on an A
Yeah,
flat.
not all songs will start on the
Or
key
the
signature note. And we'll get into that because you're going to have to
Correct.
learn,
It starts on the
you're
middle.
going to have to learn what is called a page shift to do that. Okay?
So
And that will have to come later. But right now, we're in the key of A flat.
The key is
Now, if you had a pitch pipe or a,
sorry.
and I've got the app here.
So this one doesn't start on an A flat.
That is an A flat. What if I started that song right there? On Zion's glorious summit stood. Really high, isn't it? So I can't do that, can I? Now we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have to learn arpeggios now. It actually starts, first of all, tell me, looking at the first note of the song over the word on, what line or space is it on?
E,
It's on the first line, which is E what? E flat. Now, how do I know that? Okay, now I gotta look at the key signature of all them little B's, okay? Now, there is not a B on that first line, no is it? But there is on the fourth space, which is also an E, okay? Which means all E's in this song are going to be flat. So, the first note is E flat. So now, I know now that I can blow my E flat note. And it won't blow. There we go. Now, what if I start my song there? Y'all ever hear me when I do lead singing here? You will hear me do I will blow the do, and I will go, do, so, mi, do. Y'all heard me do that before. And that, I'm finding my starting note here, because I always play the do and find my starting note. But the starting note is this one here. On Zion's glorious summit stood. That's a little easier to sing, isn't it? Okay. Let's sing this song. And we'll just start practicing something too while we're at it. Everybody, put your hand up here. I don't care which one. If you feel frog, you do them both. All right. Hand up. Bring it down. Bring it over to your belly. Bring it out to the side. And swoop it back up. Do that again. Down, in, out, up. Down, in, out, up. Very good. Keep doing that. In, out, up. Now, what are we doing here now? What are we actually doing here?
Keeping time.
Four times.
We're actually doing the song the way the song will be sounding. Oh, bad time for the bell. One verse of it very quickly. Y'all don't have to do this. I'll do that for us. Let's just sing one verse of this song so we can say we did a little singing. Oh, so on Zion's glorious summit stood a numerous host redeemed by blood, laden with King in strength divine. I heard the song and strove to join. I heard the song and strove to join. Okay, stop there. Notice there's another part of this song called the Sanctus. It is to be sung after the last verse. And a lot of folks don't know that and never sing that last part, but it is part of this song. And we'll talk about that a little later on. By the way, anybody see the little P on the third line? Anybody see that little P? Anybody know what that means?
Soft.
Quiet, softly, yeah. And we'll get that. Lesson 3 talks about dynamics. And we'll talk
Get
about that.
soft, don't drag.
Yeah, soft, right, don't drag. We're gonna talk a lot about dragging in here, 'cause let me tell you, this congregation drags, okay? All right. Oh.